Topic is GST input tax credit. Two dedicated days, today and 15th of June. We are doing this program and we have named this program GST input tax credit game changer vaccine. Like we all are talking about COVID-19 vaccine for all. I'm saying that game changer vaccine for all businesses for seamless flow of credit. Let me start with. See, when GST got introduced in July 2017, it was stated that we would be having seamless flow of credit across supply chain pan India. And that was the object clause of 101 Constitution Amendment Act, by which GST got introduced in the country. But today, if you look at GST input tax credit, it is very difficult and a mammoth task, I will say. There are many hurdles for availing credit. Somewhere it is specifically excluded, like 5 specified petroleum product out of GST. So pre-GST taxes paid on 5 specified petroleum product, credit is not available. This is out of GST known to all of us together. But what is problematic within GST law, our former President Rajiv Talwarji raised. He said real estate sector, right? When I'm getting construction done, like construction of mall, construction of factory, construction of building, commercial lease, and after getting construction done, I'm letting out for taxable outward services on which GST leviable. What Rajiv ji raised, and he was raising before us, unless this credit is available on construction, it is creating cascading, tax on tax. We become incompetitive because ultimately after getting construction done, it is being let out for commercial purpose. And that's what he was pitching for. He was telling that this credit should be made available. Second point, which is a little different for the real estate sector, 1% for affordable housing, 5% for non-affordable housing with no ITC. And this provision got introduced as if all the builders are not passing on benefit to the consumer. But we are saying from our side, we should not look at each builders from one eye. We have to look at the supply chain, seamless flow of credit. If option and alternative given to us 12% with ITC, it will provide seamless flow of credit in supply chain, cascading will go away, and it will help in reducing the prices. And that's what the competition he talked about. So this was the bigger point. And Rajiv ji, rest assured, after this webinar, we will prepare the summary later, representation later, and submit to the Finance Ministry and CBIC, including GST Council, to look into this subject matter. Let me start with the next topic. In GST, the definition of input service and capital goods. So wide. All the definition says used or intended to be used in the course of furtherance of business, such a wider definition. But when we go down deep into the provision, we find a lot of obstacles and hurdles for availing credit. Let's start with section 16, subsection 2. Mine is a theme presentation. I'm not going to deliver in detail. We got other speakers who are going to discuss each of the component with a citation of judgment as on date. I'm just trying to ignite your mind, give idea of what we are going to discuss today. Section 16, subsection 2 has 4 conditions for availing credit. What are those 4 conditions? That a registered person must have tax invoice. Second, he must have received goods or services. Third, supplier must have paid taxes. This is the burning issue I will discuss at length. And last, as a recipient, you are filing a regular return. Let me pick up one first case study and burning issue. We will have more light from the speaker coming in later, but the problem. There's one GSTR 2A or 2B, and we are debating this issue at length, whether there is any relevance of GSTR 2A or 2B for availing GST input tax credit. In my humble opinion, I do not find relevance of GSTR 2A or 2B for the region. Let's say, if I'm a supplier and you all are recipient buyer, if I put wrong GST number, then it will not be reflected in your 2A or 2B, region number 1. If I wrongly furnish B2B transaction as a B2C, credit will not flow in your GSTR 2A or 2B. Third, let's say I'm a supplier in Delhi and you all are in Maharashtra, interstate, IGST leviable. I raise correct invoice, charge correct IGST, but wrongly mention in my GSTR1 as a intrastate, C plus S, credit will not flow. I'm giving region why relevance of GSTR 2A or 2B is not important. Next, I pay the taxes through GSTR 3B, but not file my GSTR1, hence will not be reflected in your 2A. So is there any relevance? And for having relevance, this 2A or 2B came by way of rule, not by the provision. Another argument, which is a very important argument, as per this Finance Bill 2021, Clause 100, another condition, which is the 5th condition, apart from 4 conditions, as I said, got introduced by subclause AA. And this clause got introduced as a prospective clause. And as per this clause, what is being stated? The invoice or debit note on which you as a buyer or recipient availing credit must be furnished by the supplier in GSTR1. Once I'm furnishing in GSTR1, it is going to be auto-populated for you in 2A or 2B. And it must be communicated to the recipient. Interpretation of this provision H. Now this subclause, which is the part of Finance Act 2021, not yet notified. It is not retrospective clause. It is prospective and yet to be notified. The interpretation coming out. Now the credit must be reflected in your 2A or 2B, which is yet to be notified by filing GSTR1 by the supplier. So 2A, 2B relevance was not there for the prior period. Till the date it is getting notified. Hope you all are getting my message. Rule 36 of Rule 4, which talk about capping of ITC input tax credit, right, pertaining to invoice or debit note, not furnished by the supplier in GSTR1, hence not coming in your 2A or 2B. So these are by way of rule. Provision and the relevant clause in the Act is yet to be notified. So in my humble opinion, there is no relevance of 2A or 2B. And if you look at the provision of section 41, 42, 43A, then also you can debate no relevance of 2A or 2B for availing GST input tax credit. But why we are following? It may be taken as a guiding factor, but not the determining factor. Point number 1. Point number 2, which is critical for all of us together. Whether credit can be denied for the recipient or buyer for non-payment of taxes by the supplier even after collection? Whole India we are debating. As a buyer, as a recipient, we are saying to the government why I should be penalized for the fault of supplier, who even after collecting the tax, not deposited to the government exchequer, right? In my humble opinion, I have made a certain observation. Let me share my observation first. If I go back to pre-GST era, Honorable Apex Court, Supreme Court, in the case of KK Industries had held, you can't deny credit in the hands of buyer for the fault of supplier of non-payment of taxes. Under VAT regime, Delhi VAT, Delhi High Court, in the case of Arise India, has said no credit can be denied in the hands of buyer for the fault of supplier. SLP was filed against this judgment in the Supreme Court, got dismissed. Nothing was discussed on merit. All the maximum high court in the country has given favorable judgment in favor of a taxpayer. No credit can't be denied in the hands of buyer for the fault of supplier except Mumbai High Court. Coming to the GST regime, I can give you my observation, 3 observations, and I'm sure you will agree with me that why buyers should be penalized for the fault of supplier. Point number 1, GSTR 2A, which we are discussing in different context, came sometime early 2019. As a buyer, as a recipient, you paid the taxes to the supplier defaulted, did not pay the tax to the government exchequer. How as a buyer you will come to know that this supplier has not paid the taxes? 2A came very late, sometime early in 2019. So there's the period of GSTR 2A and the period post GSTR 2A. So pre-period of GSTR 2A, when as a buyer, as a recipient, you are not having any information which you were supposed to get as per GST law, how buyers should be penalized? Point number 1. Point number 2, there's one legal maxim, lex non cogit ad impossibilia. What is the meaning of this legal maxim? Is you cannot compel a person to do something which is impossible. As a buyer, you were not having any documentation which was supposed to be from the GSTN common portal as per GST law. It was not there. So how come buyer will know the supplier faulted with? As a buyer, you could have taken the action against me provided information is made available to you. So you cannot ask a person, compel a person to do something which is impossible. Recently, Madras High Court in the Madurai bench has given good judgment. And what is that judgment? You cannot demand tax interest from the buyer when supplier has not deposited, supplier faulted with, unless department take action against the defaulting supplier. Quite obvious, registration given by the department to both supplier and recipient. If supplier defaulted and did not pay, department must take action first against the defaulting supplier. Why they will penalize the buyer of no credit and payment of taxes, that too along with interest? A very good judgment coming out from Madras High Court, Madurai bench, D.Y. Bethel Enterprises. So this provision yet to be tested. In my humble opinion, I can categorically say that the period prior to GSTR 2A, when you were not having information Even GSTR 2A was not available. And in the beginning, 2A was not saying whether supplier has paid the taxes or not. At least you have strong ground to argue credit can't be denied. Coming to the third point, and these are the points we are going to discuss at length. Speakers are going to deliberate with the citation. To the second proviso of section 16, subsection 2, second proviso. And it says, as a buyer or recipient, if you fails to pay value and taxes charged by the supplier within 180 days from the date of issuance of invoice, then as a buyer, you need to reverse credit along with interest at the rate of 18% per annum. And this provision is being made as stated by government to protect MSME sector, so that you must pay to me within 180 days. That is what this provision existing today. Further, so you're reversing credit along with interest if you don't pay within 180 days. If you pay thereafter, you can take credit back, but whatever interest you have paid is a cost. Now, this provision, second provision, is not applicable in 4 situations. When there is RCM liability, reverse charge method. When there is a partial payment, you made partial payment, only to the extent of non-paid amount you need to reverse. Schedule 1, there are 4 specific entries. Even without consideration, you need not require to reverse. So supply of goods or services between related person or distinct person, stock transfer, no reversal. And last, section 15, subsection 2, clause B. Supplier is liable, but incurred by the recipient. Second proviso is not applicable. Now, 2 situations which I want to discuss as a burning issue. What happened? The transaction is turned out to be AR and AP. So you are a person supposed to pay, and you are a person supposed to get their AR AP transaction. And it gets net off. By way of net off, only net amount is being either paid or collected. So what happened? The second proviso going to be applicable? In my humble opinion, not applicable. And it is being stated by AAAR, Tamil Nadu, in the case of MRF Limited. But the important one which I'm going to discuss now, COVID-19 is going on. Businesses are closed. You're liable to pay, no denial. You're liable to pay to your vendor, but business is closed. Sometimes we have a clause, force majeure clause in the contract. And sometimes we are not having force majeure clause in the contract. If there's a force majeure clause, you can revisit your time period accordingly. But if there is no clause, I'm just giving food for thought. If supplier and recipient both comes together and decide a fresh date, future fresh date, can we say fails to pay? Recipient and buyer fails to pay. In my humble opinion, no. When we decide a future date, negotiated date, then there is no fails to pay. Hence, no reversal required. Even sometime we give the credit term 1 year, longer time period. Whether this 180 days from date of issuance of invoice applicable, to my mind, not applicable. But these are the burning issues. Coming to the 4th item, time limit to avail credit in GST, section 16, subsection 4. This issue is boiling for a long time. If I go to section 16, subsection 4, it talks about earliest of due date. Due date of furnishing return under section 39 of September following end of financial year, or date of furnishing annual return, whichever is earlier. The point of debate which is going on, if I look at due date for furnishing return under section 39, first debated whether GSTR 3B is a return under section 39. As per law, it should be GSTR 3. Honorable Gujarat High Court, in the case of AAP Associate, held 3B is not a return under section 39. This matter is sub judice before Honorable Supreme Court. By way of retrospective amendment, they have said 3B is a return under section 39, first point. Second point, and very interesting one, kindly listen carefully. Section 16, subsection 4, talk about time limit. But if I go to section 16, subsection 2, it says, and start like this, notwithstanding anything contained in this section, section 16. So overriding section 16, subsection 4. No registered person shall take credit unless satisfy the 4 conditions: having tax invoice, receipt goods and services, supplier must have paid taxes, and recipient regularly filing the return. There's no time limit prescribed in section 16, subsection 2. So maybe, in my humble opinion, if I look at the legal interpretation, section 16, subsection 2 overriding section 16, subsection 4. Third component. In GST, there is a concept, unless you file preceding month return, you cannot file subsequent month return. There's a concept. For 17-18, last date for filing annual return was 31st January 2020, 17-18. And for 18-19, it was last date to file your 3B for September was 20th October 2019. Just try to visualize, unless I file my 9 and 9C for 17-18, for which last date was 31st January 2020, unless I file for 17-18, I cannot file 18-19, and that too on 20th October 2019. I'm creating an argument not possible unless you carry forward the figure from preceding month to a current month. I'm giving food for thought. And these are all debatable. Coming to one GST amnesty scheme, which is being proposed, recommended, and now notified in 43rd GST Council meeting. Section 16, subsection 4 has got important role to play. What is this GST amnesty scheme? If you are a defaulter of non-filing of GSTR 3B for the period July 17 to April 21, you must file within a period starting from 1st June 2021 to 31st August 2021. And what is the advantage given to you? There would be reduction, waiver, and capping of late fees. If nil tax liability, 500 rupees per return, 250 CGST, 250 SGST. In all other case, 1,000 rupees. Why this GST amnesty scheme, which is being recommended, is not up to the expectation? I can tell you the reason. It is only for the 3B, not for GSTR1. Second, late fees comparison. There was amnesty scheme in 2020 also for July 17 to January 2020. And therein, there was no late fees if nil tax liability, which is now 500 rupees. 500 rupees when tax liability was there in preceding scheme, but now it is 1,000 rupees. Look at third parameter, section 16, subsection 4. Time limit to avail credit. Those who are defaulter of not filing 3B, what happened? Can they avail credit in this GST amnesty scheme? If I read section 16, subsection 4, credit is not available and such defaulter has to pay output tax with no adjustment of ITC to be paid in cash along with interest. And last, these amnesty scheme sometimes goes contrary. There are two taxpayer. One is the honest taxpayer, another one is defaulting taxpayer. I will not say dishonest one. Why defaulting? Sometimes they have taken registration but not doing any business. They're supposed to file nil return, but they did not file. So genuine defaulter. And there's someone who are making up their mind and not filing. And in GST, I've seen one irony part is those who are complying the law, paying the late fees on timely basis, they are not rewarded. Same happened. I happen to be honest taxpayer. I file my return. If late, paid the late fees. Will I get the refund? But here the waiver for the defaulter, not giving good message. So what we have to do, and we have to envisage reward to the honest taxpayer. So this was on time limit. Come to the second point. Tushar-ji is going to deliberate on exempt supplies. Exempt supplies itself for understanding sake is important for availing input tax credit. What is exempt supplies? In as per the definition as provided, exempt supplies means either nil rated or exempted by way of exemption notification. So goods are exempted by notification number 2/2017 and services are exempted by notification number 12/2017. So these are exempted. And last, including non-taxable supplies. And non-taxable supplies means supply of goods or services not chargeable to tax under GST. 3 items. So a taxpayer may be engaged in taxable supplies and exempted supplies. Important for all of us for input tax credit perspective. If my ITC related to taxable supplies, take 100% credit. If my ITC related to exempted supplies, don't take any credit. And what is left out, that is called common credit, common ITC. Then the application of Rule 42 and 43 will come into the picture for reversal of ITC pertaining to exempted supplies. Just to ignite your mind, just to tempt you that how interesting GST law. You know Schedule 3, which is neither a supply of goods nor supply of services. Let's take 3 examples. High sea sale. I'm an importer. I'm importing at $100. When goods is on high siege, I sold to another person, say B, at $120. So sell transaction in my books, chargeable to GST, first. Second, merchant trading. So merchant trading is, let's say I got an order from USA and I got the vendor to supply goods from Korea. So from Korea to USA directly supplied. Nothing has come to India, but revenue has come in the books of Bimal Jain in India. GST leviable, merchant trading. Third, in bond sale. I have imported the goods, custom bonded, in bond, and while my goods are bonded, I sold the goods. Some other person to some other person, and he's going to file X bond, bill of entry. Transaction in my hand as against $100 my purchase cost. I sold at $120 with a GST leviable. For your information, these three transactions are covered as para 7 and para 8 of schedule 3. Neither a supply of goods nor supply of services. Question is, if my outward is not chargeable to tax, do I require to reverse credit common ITC pertaining to these transactions? Explanation under section 17, subsection 3 going to play important role. No reversal required for schedule 3 transaction except para 5, sale of land and building. So for you, it is important to check what is exempted supply for reversal of credit. Going down further, Jatinji has got very interesting topic today. ISD versus cross charge. Sometime we are debating that what is cross charge, what is ISD. Cross charge, there is an element of service. ISD is only who is distributing credit pertaining to input services. Lot of debate. And we are discussing when to take registration as ISD, or it is interchangeable with a cross charge and corresponding ITC. As I said, I'm not delivering the topic. So I'm just igniting your mind. Be ready. You need to understand what is cross charge when we talk about supply of goods or services between distinct person in the course of furtherance of business, even without consideration. And what is ISD? Which only distributing credit pertaining to input services, which is related to other unit. So we have to really understand the meaning and corresponding credit provision, including credit for job worker. Last session would be done by Gaurav Gupta ji, and very interesting. GST was envisaged as a seamless flow of credit, right? But there is section 17, subsection 5. Block credit, negative list. Even though you incurred and you're going to use or intended to be used in the course of furtherance of business, no credit. Like I took the example of construction of your factory, office premises, small commercial building, which you're going to use for your taxable outward supply, still credit is not available. Why not? Can I run my business? Bimal Jain can do the business without having office. I need to get office constructed. Why credit will not be available? Mall, commercial lease, unless getting it constructed, they cannot let out that too for commercial purpose, chargeable with GST. Why such blockage? It is going against the object clause and seamless flow of credit. Coming to the second point, CSR expenses, corporate social responsibility. Illegal obligation under section 135, subsection 5 of Companies Act 2013. Can it be debated that whatever I'm incurring, it is given as a free gift? CSR is legally and mandatorily required to be incurred. It is legally obligated on me. Unless I incur, my business gets disrupted. Economic activities get stopped. So there is difference between gift and legally obligated. Gift are voluntarily in nature, optional, nothing legally obligated, but CSR legally obligated. And when I look at the definition of business, in the course of furtherance of business, if I'm a specified company, need to incur CSR expenses under section 135, subsection 5 of Companies Act, it is legal obligation on me for survival of my business. Mandatorily, I need to incur, that is in the course of furtherance of business. Credit should be available in my humble opinion. Coming back to another component, FOC, we say FOC, free of cost. Sales promotion, I put a target for my dealer distributor, give them a gold coin, take them for an overseas tour. Is it gift? No, it is always for the promotion of myself in the course of furtherance of business. I always intend to promote my business. And in that regard, if he is achieving milestone, I'm giving him something. So credit should be available, though contrary judgment. Even for CSR, there are two contrary. One, Kerala Advanced Ruling Authority, Polycab buyer saying no credit. But fortunately, UPAAR saying credit available, Dwarikesh Sugar Industries Limited, and they have relied the meaning of business, legally obligated. I understand that these advanced ruling are only applicable to the concerned appellant, but it carries the persuasive value. But overall meaning has to come from the GST law. Since we are doing this program for to complete full to date, GST input tax credit, last component which I want to touch base, pertaining to GST rate versus exemption on COVID-19 drugs, medicine, PPE kit, testing kit, oxygen concentrator, even sanitizer. What government should do? Group of ministers has submitted their proposal. Tomorrow, this GST council meeting is going to sit and they're going to discuss about the GST rate. In my humble opinion, now this vaccine, 75% central government will ensure is being given to the state, 75%. So states should not object to it because whatever then GST rate, they should not debate on. Only for 25% procurement by the state, subject to GST rate, 5% adjourn date on vaccine, jab, which we are talking about. But important is where rate is 18% and 12%. Like sanitizer, 18%. And sanitizer is being used as a preventive measure to protect against COVID-19. Why 18%? This should be made available at a price, at a rate which can be afforded by Aam Aadmi. Testing kit, N95 mask, hand gloves, all COVID-19 material which I'm referring to. There's no harm if rate is being reduced from 12% or 18% to 5%. If inverted duty structure coming out, let's refund the money. And this is for protection against the COVID-19. We all are trying best, including government. They must listen to it. I'm not saying you make it exempted. I'm not saying that. Make it lower, affordable. If somewhat resultant, there is an inverted duty structure, refund the money. Maybe for a limited time period. There may be a demand longer time period, but we may start for shorter time period, see how it is helping to the Aam Aadmi during this COVID-19, and subsequently we can take it further. I have posted one poll on my Twitter today on this only, whether GST rate to be reduced on COVID-19 drugs and medicine. Let me tell you the poll result as of now. 2/3 are in favor of rates should be reduced. 1/3 are saying not to be reduced. And these polls are very, open-ended. Since GST Council going to sit tomorrow and to decide, but at least giving a flavor what we all are talking about, thinking about for the GST rate on COVID-19 drugs and medicine. But nevertheless, objective is that this should be made affordable, at an affordable pricing, and GST rates should not come into the picture that pricing getting increased and it is becoming higher price in the hands of consumer. Maybe we can reduce the rate, make it affordable. If result is inverted duty structure in the hands of supplier, refund it accordingly. That would be my submission.